Rejected. Rejected again. Rejected again. Oh my god. All right, one more rejection. And last but not least, rejected yet again. Oh my god. What's up, guys? So that was me just getting rejected from 5 jobs in under 24 hours. So if you're watching this video, it's all about failure. So let's talk about it. My name is Prirak. I make a lot of videos about medicine and productivity. And today's video is all about overcoming failure because I feel like this is a taboo topic that no one talks about, but it's very relevant. As you saw by the start of this video, I've gotten rejected from multiple things, but most recently, because I'm doing an MD MBA, I applied to a bunch of internships, particularly for consulting, and I got rejected from 5 firms in like fewer than 24 hours, which sucked, right? Getting those emails sucks every time. And every time I get those emails, it hurts. Even when I know, like, for these jobs, maybe I didn't network as much as I should have, and so it was kind of expected I'd get rejected. And yet, it still hurt a lot. And so I was thinking to myself, why do these failures hurt so much? And aside from just making you feel incompetent, I feel like the reason failures suck is because social media has gotten us to think a lot more about successes. We go on any social media site and all we see is people's successes, whether that's in the form of Instagram, you're looking beautiful, getting a ton of likes, whether that's in the form of LinkedIn. If you go on LinkedIn, it's always about people getting jobs, right? And I've always thought that failures have defined me more than successes, right? If I think about who I am today, the reason I am the way I am, the lessons I've learned have come from failures, not from my successes. So what I did was I went on LinkedIn. And with each of the failures that you saw earlier, I made a post about, I think it's really silly that people always post their successes on LinkedIn, but I think we should also post about our failures because it's important to normalize failures because they happen to all of us. And guess what? It got like 135,000 views with like 1,000 likes. And the point is, I know it's counterproductive to look at the views and talk about not caring as much, but the point was, it resonated with a lot of people. And I've done this before too, where I've not just shared my CV, but I've shared my CV of failures, which is a CV made up of all the things I've failed at. And I think it's important because social media has made us think that everyone is succeeding, when in reality, for every one success, there's almost always 10 failures that everyone has. So today I'm going to go over the failures and how, when you get a failure, you can overcome it. The first thing to remember is that failures happen to everyone. They are normal, and believe it or not, I just think people don't vocalize them, right? If you think about your own example, I'm sure if you look up, I don't know, congratulations in your email inbox and you look up unfortunately in your email inbox, because unfortunately is associated with failures and congratulations is success, you're going to have many more failures than successes, right? And the problem is we don't talk about it. In stock markets, for example, when people invest in stock markets, people always talk about the time when they invested in something and they got a bunch of money out of it. But they never talk about the time when they invested in 100 other smaller companies that failed and went bottom up, right? Another thing I like to always bring up is Michael Jordan not making a high school basketball team, right? Or even the fact that Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, there's all these famous entrepreneurs that dropped out of college. These are all failures for each of these people. And yet we never remember these because we're always so focused on their successes. So it's really important, really, really important that we don't mislead ourselves, because I know the tendency is to look at all these big shots like Jordan, Michael Jordan, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, and think, oh my God, they've always been successful. But no, believe it or not, they've had a lot of failures. So the first thing to do whenever you fail at something is to remember, everyone who has lived on this planet before you has been through this, okay? Do not worry about it. The second thing that you should remember is failure, as much as it is dejecting and discouraging, it is just as much encouraging. And I don't know about you guys, but this is what I mean by failures define me much more than my successes. Because the moment I fail at something, I am fueled that much more to try to succeed at it, right? Because of the growth mindset, I always try to think about what can I do better? How did someone do better than me at this? And how can I get to be as good as they are in this domain, right? Another thing to remember is when you get rejected from something, don't take it personally, right? The fact is, if you got rejected from something, maybe they just missed out on you, right? For example, if you guys know Adam Grant is a very famous psychologist at University of Pennsylvania. And the first time he tried to publish something, he got rejected over and over and over again. And it wasn't until he kept refining and redoing and submitting and refining and redoing and submitting that it finally got accepted. And guess what? This guy's like one of the most renowned psychologists in the world. And his first publication took ages on ages on ages to get published, even though he ended up being brilliant, right? Another thing is, for example, there's investors that passed up on Uber and Airbnb. Guess what? Those investors missed out. It wasn't Airbnb was a shitty idea. It wasn't that Uber was a bad idea, even though they told those companies, like, who the heck is going to get into your car? You're a stranger. Who the heck is going to come into your home? You're a stranger. They all passed up on it. Airbnb went public recently with a crazy evaluation in the billions, and Uber, as we know today, is a massive success, right? Another example is Kodiak Cakes. This is a very famous brand. It's pancake mix. And it's funny because they went on Shark Tank, and Shark Tank wanted 50% of their business to get, whatever investment they wanted. And Kodiak Cakes was like, hell no, I'm not going to give you 50%. And so Shark Tank was like, no, then we're not going to accept your deal. And guess what? Kodiak Cakes today, again, worth billions, right? So there's so many ways when failure is seen, you can easily say like, oh my God, we didn't get an investment from Shark Tank. We're the worst. When in reality, Shark Tank missed out on you. So that failure wasn't actually a failure for you. It was a failure on their end. So sometimes when you fail at something, try to reverse it. Don't look at it being like you were not good enough. Try to think of it as they missed out on you. They missed out on a person who's going to come back stronger. They missed out on a person who's going to keep trying his ass off to get what he wants. They missed out on someone who is going to give them massive returns, right? Because when you look at it that way, you realize like, damn, you're a badass, right? And who is anyone to make you feel bad about yourself? So just remember, failure is a two-way street. And sometimes it may feel like you didn't live up to someone's expectation when in reality, maybe they were just not on the same wavelength as you and not ready to accept someone who is as awesome as you are, right? And that just usually helps me sometimes. The third thing, and this is the last point I want to make about failure is one of those things where in the moment it looks really bad, but you can never connect the dots looking forward. You never know what this failure means in the greater scheme of things. Failure, believe it or not, is something that could change your whole life. The biggest example here is Steve Jobs, right? Steve Jobs is actually the one who said this quote. He says you can never connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them when you look back. And the example he gives of this is when he was at Reed College, he actually dropped out, first of all. So that was already a huge failure. But when he dropped out, he freed himself to then go and sit into classes that he was actually interested in rather than the classes that he was required to take. So when he dropped out, he sat in on this calligraphy class. He loved it. He was like so fascinated by calligraphy, which is just the study of writing, right? And guess what? The class he took then translated into the beautiful calligraphy that we see on Macintosh computers today. One of the biggest competitive advantages that Apple has is that it is so aesthetically sleek. The font on Apple is so much better than the font on a Windows. And that, guess what, came from Steve Jobs dropping in on that calligraphy class, right? So this failure that he could have seen as, oh my God, I've dropped out of college, this is horrible. Looking back now, that failure was what was responsible for one of the biggest things that led Apple to be one of the biggest successes that it is today. The calligraphy, the typography, the aesthetic design that is imbued in Apple's culture today would not have come about if Steve Jobs had not failed. And that failure was actually pivotal in us experiencing the experience that we have with Apple today, right? You can never connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking back. And a failure today may end up changing the trajectory for your life in a better way than it would have been had you gotten that job. So just remember that when a failure happens, maybe it was because it was intended for you to gain something else out of it. Maybe it was because this was not right for you at this point in time. I know that sounds a little more philosophical and religious than I'd like it to seem, but I think that's a really great quote that I always remind myself when I find myself down, right? When I find myself getting an email saying you didn't get this position, it's like, got it. Well, I don't know where this is going to take me, but I do know that one day down the line, I'm going to look back on this, connect the dots, and realize that was the reason I needed to do that. I needed to experience that failure, right? Failure is just incorrectly calibrated success, and someone who succeeds is often the person who agreed to try one more time after failing. So with all of that being said, I hope this gave you guys some insight into how to overcome failure. You want to realize that it happens to everyone. You want to make sure that you gain positive encouragement from failure. Come back stronger the second time. And the most important thing is to remember, sometimes failure is essential. It happens to everyone, and it will be a big part of the reason your journey ends up being the way it ends up being. Because you're going to connect the dots looking backwards and realize That was what made all the difference. So hopefully this brings a bit more comfort to everyone. I know this year has been crazy. So with that being said, thank you guys for watching this video. Like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.